Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to, once again, Moving Forward. I want to say to all of you in St. Lucia and the diaspora, welcome. Before I go into what I have to say tonight, I just want to say or to send my congratulations to Stanley Felix for being successful in his case, where the judge threw the case out because of individuals like Leon Theophilus and Richelieu. I believe that's Alverton. I believe that justice was done because you cannot try a man under a law that is not the right. It's false. You have to charge him under the right conditions, the right law, and that was not done. So consequently, I want to say, because he's the, as we know, he's the ex-Speaker of the Senate, and I must say to them, well done. So tonight, I say to you, my listeners, I am in no mood to hold back the feeling that seems to be exploding within every sinew of my body when I hear the spew that has been spilled out by the opposition, more so by some of their surrogates who seem to be empty-headed. Many of these individuals seem to have a mouth that is full of garbage to the extent no one bit of it can be recycled because of its poisonous nature. This is certainly not the program. I don't want to debunk anyone. That is not what the program is about. But it is important that the media personnel should know what they are talking about and don't make irrational and contentious statements without the facts or having done some research as much as possible on the subject. Over the last few years, we tend to hear some of that garbage and blatant lies from the leader of the opposition in terms of what he says, and so are his surrogates and reprobates. This must be brought to an end by the behavior of those who lead us and the media fraternity. When I hear the present leader of the opposition and past Prime Minister talking in terms of the Deputy Speaker and the Constitution and other matters of state, I'm simply appalled that the individual can now come to the House prepared to try and demolish the government or demonize them on that issue. Well, he was certainly shocked. So much so, he seemed at a loss as to whether he was in the right house or not, or some of his garbage that he intended to spill out, which he thought would be toxic, did not materialize. Ladies and gentlemen, I will deal with that later in the program, and I will espouse on why. Because when he was the leader, the Constitution did not matter to him. He used it when it suited him, more so during COVID-19. This is the guy who talked about crime, but simply committed a crime by riding behind a police motorcyclist without a helmet. He simply did not care whether it was against the law. Oh, but he was the Prime Minister and part of the Massa tribe in St. Lucia. However, before going any further, I want to open up tonight on the Haitian political unrest that has been going on and on, which had some local media personnel, in my view, making derogatory remarks that left me somewhat perplexed, bemused, and dumbfounded. I literally had to ask myself in all sincerity, how can these people be allowed to poison the minds of those who listen to them in that manner, more so our younger generation? I would have thought that the important question that should have been asked is why the country who first led the Black Revolution against slavery is now going through such a crisis where death and destruction is now part and parcel of the everyday life. The mannerism of some in the media, by the callous remarks they make, is certainly unacceptable in any Caribbean country or in African politics. It became clear to me, having heard the arrogance and stupidity on the St. Lucian airwaves by certain individuals, I had no alternative but to immediately come to the conclusion that with individuals of that mindset in our midst, no wonder we seem to have no respect for each other, and only violent action and crime seem to be the order of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, these people create conflict in our midst, in our minds. Therefore, I want you, wherever you are, to consider the plight of our Haitian brothers and sisters, and to try to balance in whatever way we think, and in whatever we say and think. Let us try to see how our government or governments of the Caribbean can help to stop them killing each other. Last week, some gibberish and nonsensical diatribe was being discussed on our airwaves in terms of Haiti. Only to say once again that I was simply appalled that a discussion on that country could sink so low. Many are saying that the man holding Haiti hostage is one by the name of Barbecue and his gang. Yet there are many gangs in Haiti at present. What makes me angry is that there are lots of very rich people living in plush conditions in the mountainous areas of Haiti, who live in luxurious homes, and they are mainly the American rich. Didn't you know that? How many people are aware of this? The assassination of the president 32 months ago eroded the development of Haiti by a magnitude of 10 times maybe. Current crisis in Haiti does not want CARICOM solution, and that is what Barbecue thinks too. Pamela White, former US ambassador to Haiti, is also of the opinion that Kenyan troops will not solve the situation. However, I believe that serious debate and action taken quickly by the UN should be the order of the day, but must not be a piecemeal attempt at a solution. Poor judgment on Haiti, inhumane treatment, deporting Haitian migrants from certain countries, together with the famine and violence that is going on in Haiti, has made it a failed state. Much of the problem is how Haiti was used by those of bigger countries, of the speciality of that, especially France, the United States. Question I would like to ask, and it is the same in St. Lucia and other parts of the Caribbean, are simply, where are the guns coming from? Because I'm sure that they are not being manufactured in Haiti or in the Caribbean. Drug trafficking is another big one. Serious issues coming from the Haitian dialogue. The week before, I was interviewed on Choice as to my thoughts on Haiti, and I tried to be balanced and to be diplomatic in what I said. However, without a doubt, I did put much of the problems at the door of the French government, and without a doubt, the United States of America, who seem to like causing alarm and despondency in many countries of the world, especially those close to them. Did we not see this in Venezuela or in Cuba? The majority of South Americans or American countries suffered from the injustices of the free world. Have we got a short memory? Have we forgotten their attitude to Papa Doc and his son, who took over from him, who was removed from the political arena? By whom? Those who keep making rash statements to satisfy their egos, and the few who listen to them. These are the past and present issues that we should look at and try to internalize. In theory, unlike some, I do care about what is taking place in Haiti, because in the long run, it will affect the whole of the Caribbean area. I remind those narrow-thinking individuals that the world is a small world these days. Never forget that. When they make unwarranted statements, I say to them, go and educate themselves, because It is never too late to do so, because Solomon made that clear in the Bible. If they are to get some wisdom and therefore have some balance in what they say and do, what I say to them is that when I hear them facilitating the way they do, I understand why one who simply fit in their shoes as their leader can call them mendicants, jackasses, or barking dogs who continually bray. He recognizes them because he is their leader. What a bunch of reprobates, nincompoop, and political feces that needs to be flushed down the toilets. At times, as I have said before, that I am simply at a loss to think that our forefathers, fathers, and foremothers fought so hard for their future young men and women to come out of the darkness and into the light of knowledge and wisdom, yet some still fail to do so because of their arrogance. Yet sometimes, when what we are seeing in this country of ours are those who are fed on poison with that we term propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and share bullshit in regards to what Haiti is really all about. More so in this particular hemisphere by a bunch of poorly educated nincompoops who are still subservient to the white colonial masters and now neo-colonial masters. Many of these individuals should, I may say, make an effort to read a little about the writings of Marcus Garvey and his thinking, even to an extent to read a little of what Sir Arthur Lewis wrote about. And at this juncture, Professor Lumumba of Nigeria, I said to some of them too, that when they talk about Haiti, to really go and study that country thoroughly and in depth. Not only that, they should read about Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines, Henri Christophe, people like Stokely Carmichael, and lately Frantz Fanon from Algeria. Dessalines was a damn good leader of Haiti who had no real education, but he was a leader who listened to those around him that was more knowledgeable than him and took into account their views in his decision-making process. Yet he turned out to be one of the best leaders Haiti has ever had. I believe that France at this juncture should pay back to Haiti all what the Haitians paid to them in reparations, can you believe it, for becoming the first black republic. And now I say further that they should pay to Haiti all what they should have paid themselves in reparation. Much of Haiti's history is somewhat complex for the shallow minds in the Caribbean to comprehend. Much of what is happening in Haiti stems from France. Their totalitarian rule over the black countries they conquered, even in Africa. Those who have studied Haiti in depth will come to the realization how France ruled that country. Those who have studied the country's history will know that they split the country into three: whites, mulattoes, and blacks, which was deliberate, a divided and ruled strategy. The mulattoes did not mix with the blacks, and when they thought of their own revolutions before the Black Revolution, they were doing it in secret so that no blacks were involved, because they wanted to take over the position of the whites, to dominate the blacks of that country. Therefore, before one speaks, they should educate themselves in terms of the history of Haiti, and they will know what Haitians have been through in their lives. They should read, as I said, a lot about what Frantz Fanon wrote about when he described the phenomenon of the early stages of an anti-colonial revolution and what goes on in the psyche of people who are daily and hourly being terrorized and intimidated by colonialism. Yet an individual leader of this country said that it had a conscience, that's colonialism. And no one has put him in his place after making such an insulting statement to a black country that he was prime minister of. I've done so much on that. But now I will take the opportunity to enlighten these individuals or these reprobates who seem unaware of who they are and what our forefathers, and also those of Haiti, had to go through under colonialism that was even worse than the English form of colonialism that France had in the Caribbean and elsewhere. I want to say to individuals who make silly statements in terms of letting people kill themselves should do a little history, study a little history about the English and then the French form of colonialism, developed into what we term today French imperialism. It amazes me what some of the most expensive houses in the world are in Hyde Park, Knightsbridge, South Kensington. I can tell you that. Yes, yet sadly, the bulk of the wealth came from slavery. Our forefathers. I bring this up because it is necessary to enlighten the minds of some that are still in the doldrums of time. Frantz Fanon went on to write something that is quite profound when he elucidated that to understand the intensity of that terror must conceptually enter the mind of the colonized under a regime dominated by foreigners, reduced to outsider status in one's own country, a powerless victim of divide and rule tactics, which set brother and sister against each other, rendering them totally disorganized and isolated. The first black revolution during slavery we saw, as I mentioned, was Haiti. In a sense, mankind's way of life, which still exists today. This is the age of revolution to an extent, because the age of indifference has gone forever. But the latter age paved the way for today, for the great masses of mankind, while still suffering the greatest oppression and the greatest affronts to their dignity as human beings, never ceased to resist, to fight as well as they could, to live in combat. There is something I learned a long, long time ago in academia, and it is human beings, not systems, machines, or weapons, who decide their own lives. To ignore this is to isolate a small segment of humanity, the population of even the United States, from that life, the problems and the changes that the immense majority of humanity is experiencing. Is at this juncture I'll take my first break, and I'll be back just to end this. I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward, and I was talking about the Haitian experience right now. And I want to say loudly, to let the Haitians kill one another is not the right thing to have said. And to show that they're not interested, should inculcate into their minds, the people who make these statements, that the Haitian people were jeopardized for several years to come by an evil and outwardly subtle policy that we call colonialism, which was left behind by our white colonial masters. It is at this juncture I want to say to you, my listeners, here and in the diaspora, let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Father in heaven, we once again come to you, as always, to ask for your blessings. O Father, bless the country. Bless the Prime Minister, Philip Joseph Pierre. Bless our leaders, and bless the people of the land. We believe in you, Father, and because you are all-powerful and always look to goodness and purity of heart. So we pray to you to instill in all St. Lucians that which can bring out the good in them instead of the evil that prevails in this world of ours. We put our faith and trust in you, Father, because you are without a doubt the Prince of Peace, the King of Kings, and the Lord of Lords. Amen, amen. Tonight I quote from Psalm 75, verses 1 to 10. We give thanks to you, O God. We give thanks to you. We proclaim how great you are and tell of the wonderful things you have done. I have set a time for judgment, says God, and I will judge with fairness, though every living creature tremble and the earth itself be shaken. I will keep its foundation firm. I tell the wicked not to be arrogant. I tell them to stop their boasting. Judgment does not come from the east or from the west, from the north or from the south. It is God who is the judge, condemning some and acquitting others. The Lord holds a cup to his hand, filled with the strong wine of his anger. He pours it out, and all the wicked drink it. They drink it down to the last drop. But I will never stop speaking of the God of Jacob or singing praises to him. He will break the power of the wicked, but the power of the righteous will be increased. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Now tonight, I want to tackle an issue that was thrust by the now opposition that seemed to have coerced the voter in giving them a chance in being the government of the country at the 2016 election. Some of you will be surprised. St. Lucians, I want to bring back to the fore the idea that caught our imagination then. Yet it was the biggest con-trick that was ever floated about by any party in our election process over the years in this country. Yes, some of you may be wondering, what is he talking about? Well, I now bring to the fore the idea of 5 to stay alive. How many of you can recollect what it was all about? The 5 was health working towards having a national health service, one like our colonial masters have in England, and to an extent, what they reputably left behind, but would be made better. They left it behind because they had a conscience. That's what something. An agricultural system, that's the second one, that will feed the country, and any surplus will be exported, which will help with the country's balance of payments. Crown lands can be subdivided, leased, or sold to potential entrepreneurs or farmers. And 3, an education system that educates the future generation to the world of work, where having new technological and engineering skills will help in generating the future entrepreneurs who are creative and innovative. This skillful society will encourage investors to come. And 4, one that will produce or put into place a system that the state can designate areas for new housing system, for those thriving to own their own homes. So UWP government must help to make this system available and affordable. And 5, to encourage a healthy and clean environment where we take heed of global warming, and climate change. Therefore, educating people to proper disposal of waste, etc. All this would be geared to building a new St. Lucian society. In my honest opinion, 5 to stay alive was the biggest con-trick ever perpetrated on the voters of St. Lucia, or even the Caribbean on the whole. It was false, just as the Trump theory of a stolen election, which brought about the insurrection we witnessed in the United States in January the 6th. It was false beyond comprehension. What was needed in our politics was a leadership of the country by an individual who is humble and who puts the country first, and not what we have or we have seen in the past under the FFF. Friends, family, or family, friends, and foreigners. We needed someone who could identify with the poor, the disabled, the sick, and the shut-in. We also needed a leader who is concerned about the struggling mothers and also the destitute in our society. We needed a leader that will bring about a development in the society that will create employment and education that is highly skilled to attract foreign direct investments and not BDI, as I call it, buy foreign investments, as we have seen with Ojo Labs, Cabot, by using national insurance money as a loan when we were told that the individual was a billionaire, and the DSH program and the continual borrowing of money that simply put a noose around the future government's neck. More so when the money is used uselessly on the rich. We must never forget the 21 million tax relief to sandals, which was unacceptable at the time it was done, when the country was simply struggling, or it was broke, or did not have money. How could that be justice? I'm bringing all this back to the fore because our people tend to forget very quickly. And that is what the opposition is preying on, more so with the diatribe they keep spouting. I believe that voters have to begin to see the truth from the untruth, because they are not mendicants, jackasses, or barking dogs who keep braying. At this juncture, I want to come to something that every woman in this country should have been up in arms about by the derogatory statement that was being made by the leader of the opposition. He even made it, as I said, the past Prime Minister, in regards to our young ladies in Trinidad, about their mothers and mothers before them. The statement being made is simply unacceptable and cannot be such. To such an extent, it was said in Trinidad, as I just mentioned. This empty-headed leader of the opposition said in Trinidad that the causes of crime is because of young ladies at 18 having children, and 2 or 3 children, like their mothers before them, and even their mothers before that. Can you believe it? That this guy sees this as the reason for crime in St. Lucia and elsewhere, and therefore it must be the same in Trinidad and Tobago. I felt so ashamed for our young ladies that I wish those who were watching, the leader of the opposition at the last sitting of the House, that they are now convinced than ever before that this individual uses the House as a pappy show. I nearly said papa show. More and more, I am angry that this individual is part of our governmental process. I had to agree with Richard 200%, as I've said many times before. In nearly 5 years as Minister of Tourism and 5 years as Prime Minister, that this guy had not built not even one hotel. This idea of bringing foreign direct investment to the country, and Alan can name Cabot, where NIC pensioners' money had to be used, as I mentioned before. And now Frederick is alluding to the same. And lo and behold, Ojo Labs, where this government paid everything that had to be paid for. And that was foreign direct investment. And yet, this firm, when they had to invest $78 million, they invested it in Grenada. Then Alan had the gall to talk about Galaxy, whom he had this deal with. Yet this company was allegedly not what one expected with its reputations. That company, who had an unfavorable reputation on another island in the Caribbean, came and built a big walled village to have housed 2,000 Chinese with not one job going to a St. Lucian. These are the investors this nincompoop is talking about. And lo and behold, the SH, where we spend all that money, or to be exact, pandered to Tiwa King, virtually giving the individual our land and money as though we were Santa Claus. Prime Minister made it clear that St. Lucian economy has advanced and progress and the economy robustness, primary balance revenue, government collect health and security levy would be how much we have spent on health and security for people who are now benefiting mental health. The members of Miko South has not understood that. He said that he has not mimicked the PM in the House. That's what he said. It shows you the liar he is. He has not mimicked the PM, which is one of the biggest lies I've ever heard. Because in the sitting of the House, it was recorded when he went to say, ma, to the then leader of the opposition. Everyone who is honest can remember that. And further to that, he knows very well that he went on to say in the House to the opposition that after June the 6th, the opposition, and that is in 2016, the opposition lose their right to speak or to an extent give advice to the government or his party. This Prime Minister then, this present Prime Minister reminded Ireland and the opposition that there were 6 members of the opposition then when they were in power, and not one of these constituencies got a bag of cement on the CDC program. This in itself was a travesty of justice and showed how callous an individual this reprobate of a then Prime Minister was all about. He did not fathom in his thick skull that he was the Prime Minister of all St. Lucia and not of the United Records of the Poor. One bag of flour during COVID-19, the piousness, misleading the people who came to this honorable country. During that period, he gave the labor areas nothing. Then he said that the $1.50 for petrol was going to be put in the lockbox for roads repair and things like that. No one can find the lockbox today. The Prime Minister made it clear that Alan has no control of his party right now. And therefore, in someone's terms of reference, ça pas flambeau. There is no respect for him per se. And that has somewhat fallen into the gutters of indecency because there is no decency in that party now. The Prime Minister spoke about his earlier days in politics when Romanas Lansico, his opponent in the constituency, never went down to that level that now the now opposition goes down to. He said quite succinctly and in an elegant tone and manner that he and Lansico never had that hatred that he now sees being perpetuated in the United Records of the Poor because they lost an election. I too must say without a doubt that I concur with him. The decency of that party is now in the gutters, and it is in the one that stinks without a doubt. Alan has said or made the statement that there is no growth and that the country is in a mess. Yet he cannot prove that. Well, the Prime Minister made it clear that they are now clearing the mess under his leadership that they left behind. What we don't hear him say, or what he said, is the continual blasting, that's our Prime Minister, about potholes in the roads. Much could not be done because at the time of the weather. And that is what they did before the elections, trying to bring about flashing mirrors to get another 5 years in office. So they plastered the roads, but that didn't last because it made it even wider later. Alan has the audacity to make statements like these when he was the same one saying openly that the country was broke, and later quite categorically said that he did not say that. What he said is that the country did not have money. They simply have nothing to throw at this government because the roads are being repaired. More so, as the weather is getting better. The hospital is being worked on feverishly. Many of the projects they could not deal with are now being reinvented and worked on. Oh yes, in my view, Alan came to the House on Tuesday the 18th to give the government an uppercut on the Deputy Speaker issue, which they went about breaking the so-called, they thought, so-called constitution of the colonizers, and not one of the people and by the people. We need our constitution, not one left behind by our colonial masters, because Alan proved that himself when he broke it. We had a passion, not for us, but for them. They had a passion, not for us, but for themselves. These are the colonizers. When one looks at the planning of the last government, whether short-term or long-term, it was simply a mess, which this government is slowly but surely dealing with the mess that was left behind on that front. As I have mentioned before, the roadworks are improving by the hard-working men and women who are planning and working feverishly. The work on the Millennium Highway that was started under Alan and seemed to have fumbled in the dark is now being resurrected and is moving at a feverish pace to everyone's amazement. Yet, Labour is working without a doubt, in my view. This seems to be getting on their nerves because they have no ammo, so to speak, to throw at the government. What is now being seen is that our roads was under tremendous pressure in so many years gone by. More so, the Soufriere to Vieux Fort Road, which was being worked on by the last Labour government and was stopped by the UWP when they got into power in 2016. The Castries-Grosley Highway was the same, was also stopped by Alan Chesney. And then they resurrected it and made a mess out of it. St. Lucians, you must never forget the best we were seeing or the worst we were seeing, because the contracts were given to whom they wanted. And that turned out to be a fiasco because they were working almost without any plans. This, in theory, was total madness. And this is the same guy who's talking about planning to this government, the nature of planning. There he was as a prime minister who virtually destroyed Liat, but somehow supported many different airlines. But the one he should have supported, he simply did not. It's at this juncture I'll take the next break and I'll be back to finish that off. Welcome back to Moving Forward. And I was talking about Liat during Alan's time as Prime Minister, where he even supported American Eagle to compete with Liat. This in itself showed us how callous and dangerous this individual was in his treatment of the St. Lucian people. I don't want you, my brothers and sisters, to forget that it was not only him, because he had a set of poodles who must never taste power again, ever in this country. This is the same guy, ladies and gentlemen, who spent $45 million subsidizing foreign airlines to St. Lucia. This guy talks about business sense, yet, as a Minister of Tourism, did not show any business sense when he brought boxing in paradise to St. Lucia, which cost an arm and a leg, so to speak, and we got no investments from that. Our money virtually went down the drain, so to speak. The individual had a false piousness about him, more so the way he kept misleading the people about putting money into this so-called lockbox to fix roads, but never told us where that lockbox was situated or under what ministry one could find it. This was total pie in the sky. The Prime Minister, in his delivery in the House, was vociferous and hard-hitting when he made it clear that the leader of the opposition speaks about taxes. Yet this is the same gentleman who professed to have the interests of this country at heart. Ladies and gentlemen, yet he is the same one who maligns the government and tells people what he wants, most so when he's overseas. He tried his best to treat the government with contempt. However, what he failed to realize is that he's only tolerated but not trusted overseas. The Prime Minister made it clear that most tax amnesty and tax reduction in the history of St. Lucia did not start with his administration, because that was so since the leader for Vieux-Fort South was the Prime Minister, Kenny D'Anthony. He made it clear that the leader of the opposition tries his best to malign the country overseas. He made it clear that his government have given the most tax amnesties, and the Prime Minister made it clear also that considerable progress reforms have taken place. What he has shown is that truth is always on the throne, because regardless how hard the opposition tries to refute this, they are confronted with a huge iron barrier. He made it clear that we are a small economy. Therefore, the margin of error is quite limited in a tight economy. The Minister for External Affairs spoke about the high fuel costs for starting and expanding businesses. He mentioned the climate a policy is required for changes, and therefore, in my view, this must be taken on seriously, because at present it seems as if we will have a very active hurricane season this year. Therefore, we must be on the alert and to plan carefully and in a positive manner. He also went on to point out that the loan the government is seeking will be useful in terms of what it is to be done with. Not only that, but the loan that is being taken is on a favorable terms of 40 years with no interest charges on the loan. There is a grace period on the loan of 10 years. And he pointed out that what all this shows is that we have a responsible Minister of Finance. The sum of $30,500,000 loan, that's US dollars in total. The loan being sought is in EC dollars is 108 million. And it is a policy-based loan operations. And it is to do with the budget, or the government's budget, which they have to meet. And they have to meet certain pillars. So St. Lucia can meet a threshold interest rate of 7.5% used for budgetary support. This loan is what is termed a policy-based loan. Cabot lands were going to be bought by NIC at one time, we forgot that, which was going to cost $90 million. Yet because of the government then, that's Allen and them, the so-called billionaire that was supposed to buy it did not have the money. So NIC lent him $30 million. Can you believe that? What a con trick. This prevented St. Lucians from owning those lands, and then used the pensioners' money to give a loan to a foreigner. They were able to pay the loan within a short space of time because of the hefty profit they made. Can we believe this? It was no different with the DSH project, when nearly 1,000 acres of land was sold to T.O.R. King at $1 an acre on a 99-year lease. I've mentioned that before. The Prime Minister spoke once again why the 2.5% levy was imposed and how it will be in the consolidated fund to be used for health and security reasons. This government, he reminded the opposition, has removed VAT on medical equipment, building equipment, and also sports facilities. This is a responsible government, unlike what we had before. He made it clear that he is rebutting all the opposition's lies, although he was told not to. Nevertheless, he made it clear that I am doing so at present. He will take them on, in other words. He then asked a fundamental question to the opposition as to what extra tax has this government put on the people of St. Lucia. But also, the leader of the opposition, as usual, was not there to answer. That is the representation that Miku South seemed to get. I'm trying to speak very fast. Looking back into the archives of the House sitting, I was somewhat amused by Minister King when he made it clear, and I quote, that I can no longer be part of an organization that I supported. He made it clear that he's unable to recognize the founding principle of the party, to the extent that he went on to say, "Ça pas flambeau." He's quite right. Here was a government, on coming into power, virtually stopped everything the past Labour government had put in place. One noticeable thing was the $1.50 US that was then placed by the Minister for Sports at the time, Sean Edwards. He allocated that to our sprint queen, Alfred, to help her with her training. On coming into office, the United Workers' Party immediately stopped that measly sum. Today, she's supposed to be our queen of sprinting. And it's as if they had a hand in her success. These individuals at the higher echelon of the United Workers of the Poor are basically dishonest in everything they do and say. You can see that at that last sitting. They came to the House to pulverize the government in terms of the Deputy Speaker of the House. But Labour was well prepared for them, because what they did not expect was thrown down their throats. It seems that Alan has a short memory, or no memory at all. When it suits him, he simply forgets that the administration, on coming to power, was not interpreting the Constitution in that we needed a Deputy Speaker for the House. That's during his time. From those elected, he thought that he was smart in that he had Sarah to be Deputy Speaker for the first sitting, and then left the House without a Deputy Speaker for nearly 5 years by making her Minister of External Affairs. Have we forgotten that, ladies and gentlemen? Now to hear this guy, who now simply forgot that he virtually took no heed of the Constitution because he did not see the relevance when it suited him. Now he wants us to make this present government look bad. But without a doubt, he was made to look as the ass that he is in the House. God is good and he's all powerful. But what got up my nose and made every sinew of nerves that I have in my body tremble is when he made the remark that being a member of the House is a sacred thing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here is St. Lucia. Here in St. Lucia in the diaspora. I literally vomited because of the shock. The Minister of Infrastructure, Stephenson King, speaking in the House on the Women's Parliamentary Caucus of St. Lucia, reflected on his mother's tenacity, who raised him and his siblings. More so his eldest daughter, or sister, who was 12 years older than himself, played the role of a second mother, and she was tremendous. He spoke about the teachers who had an effect on his life, foundation of his education. He spoke about all the women who imparted on his life and made him who he is today. He mentioned mention Miss Isaac, an outstanding permanent secretary, champion of women's affairs, and championing the cause in the parliamentary most challenging period, was when he was asked to take over the mantle of being Prime Minister in 2006, 2011. Tessa Mangal stood by him and gave him support and encouragement when he lacked that then during that tense period. Yes, she was a tremendous support for him. And her influence motivated him, he said. He spoke about current portfolio permanent secretary, Lenita Joseph, together with the deputy permanent secretary, and also the engineer for the infrastructure ministry, who are all women, who are now pushing him onto higher heights. He made it clear that in his constituency office, all the workers are women. However, one of the women in his life who, whether in good times or in bad times, have given him moral support is no other than his wife. Therefore, giving support of the resolution in the House, before it will, for him, it will not only consolidate the energy of women who are the dominant factor for the men in Parliament. He went on to say that their presence in the communities is something to celebrate because they motivate and provide the support in those communities. So much so, he went on to espouse that those women who are always prepared to go to the front. He therefore expressed unwavering support for the motion to establish the woman parliamentary support. Well said, Minister. And I stand by you 200%. And it's at this juncture I will take my next break. I'll be back. Welcome back to Moving Forward. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight before closing, I feel that I want to be as spiritual as I can. And therefore I say to each and every one of you listening tonight to please seek God and with all your heart and might to discover him and make him a power in your life. I say this to you, my brothers and sisters, that without him, all our efforts will turn to ashes, and our sun rises into the darkest night, because without him, life is a meaningless drama with the decisive scenes missing. However, with him, we are able to rise from the fatigue of despair to the buoyancy of hope. With him, we are able to rise from the midnight of desperation to the daybreak of joy, which we are having under Philip Joseph Pierre. Therefore, I say aloud and clear that St. Augustine was right, that we were meant for God, and we will be restless until we find rest in him. So I said to you all, from the tallest mountain in St. Lucia, Mount Jimmy, that you should love yourself, if that means rational, healthy, and moral self-interest. You are commanded to do that. That is the length of life. Love your neighbor as yourself. You are also commanded to do that. That is the breadth of life. But never forget that there is a first and even greater commandment, and that is to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. This is the height of life. And when you do this, ladies and gentlemen, you live the complete life. What I've seen in this country is many who seem to fear nothing more terribly than to take a position which stands out sharply and clearly from the prevailing opinion. You see it in the United Records of the Poor. The tendency of most is to adopt a view that is so ambiguous that it will include everything, and so popular that it will include everybody, or everything that is presently accepted, even though it is wrong. What is clear more so in our politics is that few men and women who cherish lofty and noble ideals hide under them. And it's like hiding under a bushel for fear of being called different. Who cares? It's who you are. This must never be so, because, as my father has always told us, to thine own self be true, and thou canst be false to no man. That indeed is my motto in life. And as I close, I want to say to the leader of the opposition that regardless what he says about this present unity government, to others around the world, is to look back at his track record, which is laughable all over. My brothers and sisters, they are laughing at him, not at us. So tonight, I tend to see in St. Lucia, what I tend to see in St. Lucia is that many people fear nothing more terribly than to take a position which stands out sharply and clearly from the prevailing opinion. Well, I can't be one of them, because I believe sincerely what is right and what is wrong is wrong. Therefore, what does the future hold for us under Philip Joseph Pierre as Prime Minister? That's the question. It is certainly bright as far as I'm concerned, but if we are stupid to ever re-elect the comedian and propagandist and blatant liar that leads the opposition, then, ladies and gentlemen, we will certainly see a doom and gloom scenario with the skies covering all parts of this country, because what will emanate is one where the majority of the people in this country will be subservient to the few. Therefore, I say tonight, as I end, that if we act boldly and decisively together under Philip Joseph Pierre, we can certainly shape the new St. Lucia that our citizens want and that we owe to future generations. This will be a just and humane, inclusive St. Lucia, an exciting, energetic, enterprising one. It will be indeed everyone's St. Lucia. With this, I conclude. But as always, to make it clear that I've tried to be honest, because to be honest is to confront the truth regardless how unpleasant and inconvenient it may be. We must expose and face it if we are to achieve a better quality of life for all St. Lucians, rich or poor. I therefore implore you to go in peace and give praise and thanks to the One Most High. I do remind you all that we were born black, and we must never forget that. We should be proud of who we are and always thank the One Most High and say, I am black and proud. Blessed love to you all. Therefore, go in peace to serve the One Most High. I say that in all sincerity. Good night and good night. Blessed love.